What are you making?
I'm mixing up a stew to give corporate a different view. Have a taste. Welcome to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger, and today on the menu is goals. While you're putting on the apron, let's talk about a couple things. 1, we are in week 3 of the Corporate Kitchen podcast. We have 4 episodes out now. There's going to be a post on the Instagram page today called Kitchen Touch-Ups. You can use that post to make comments on things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you want to see in the future. If you have ideas for topics, please feel free to use that post to comment and just let me know how things are going. And I can make touch-ups in order to improve this podcast to make it better for you as the listener. I do have all 48 topics identified for season 1 of 2025. However, if you give me feedback of a certain topic that you're seeking or that you want me to do, if it's not already in the schedule, I'll make sure I prioritize that one and I'll drop one in order to bring that in. So give me some feedback on Instagram. I'll do a couple other check-ins throughout the year just to see how everyone's feeling, what your thoughts are, and if there are any recommended touch-ups, let me know. Got your apron on? All right, let's talk about goals. According to the Merriam-Webster, the definition of a goal is 1, the end toward which effort is directed. 2, an area or object toward which players in various games attempt to advance a ball or puck and usually through or into which it must go to score points. That is a very convoluted way to say hockey, basketball type stuff, soccer, football. Number 3, the terminal point of a race. We're obviously talking about the first definition, the end towards which effort is directed. So before we even put oil in this pan, let's be very clear. The definition of goal gives you 2 pieces of critical information about them. The end shows goals are time-bound, and effort is directed shows it takes effort. So by definition, it's consistent with time and effort. If you aren't willing to do those things, we can't get started. If you're not willing to put in the time, if you're not willing to put in the effort, we can't talk about goals. In terms of the food analogy that we're going to use for today, one of the things that I'm doing with the topics that I've chosen for the first half of 2025, I chose the topics that I'm going to use acronyms in because I am going to do an episode later this year called Acronyms and How They Need to Die. Once I do that episode, I will no longer be using acronyms in these podcasts. I have a strong sense of really wanting to eliminate acronyms. Sometimes they're useful, but more times than not, they are an impediment in communications instead of being helpful. This episode's food analogy, or kitchen analogy would be more accurate, is C.H.E.F. And we're going to use C.H.E.F as an acronym, C.H.E.F. And that acronym is going to stand for Cook, Host, Eat, Finish. Let's take a few minutes to break that down before we get into our takeaways. Let's talk about that. Let's say, for example, that you are going to host a cookout. Football games this weekend, we're going to host some friends over and just have them over. You're going to be the chef. You're going to cook something. If it's just a male and the boys, right? The bromance in the man cave, that may look a little bit different than a family hosting other families. For this example, we're just going to do family, which could be just, no kids, the couples hosting other couples. When we're thinking about what we're going to cook, we're going to throw something on the grill, right? So hot dogs, hamburgers, maybe some ribs. Of course, the spouse is going to say, okay, we got to have sides. So let's get the potato salad. Let's get some pasta salad. Or do we make mac and cheese? There's some thought that goes into what we cook. We got to have the main course and sides to go with the main course. So let's just say hot dogs, hamburgers. Let's do ribs on the grill. And for sides, we're going to do macaroni and cheese, potato salad, a little bit of coleslaw, and some chips, right? And that's going to be what we're going to eat. Now we have to think about hosting. The game doesn't come on. It's a primetime game. It's not going to come on until 8:20. We're going to have people over. Obviously, they're not going to get there for 8:20. We'll say they can start getting there for 6. What are they going to do from 6 until 8:20? How are we going to entertain them? What are we going to provide as entertainment until the actual main event starts? That's the hosting part. When you and the guys are just circling around the grill talking with a beer, you're not consciously planning for that. But as the wearing the hat of chef, it is something that you think about, right? If people are going to come early, you're going to think twice of, okay, what are they actually going to do? You also think about what time are you going to have the food done in terms of hosting. Do you get maybe some hors d'oeuvres or other snacks that people can have until all the food's actually done? We don't want the food done too early, but we also don't want the food done at 8, right? So it's finding that balance too when you're hosting of when the meal is actually done. What is everyone going to drink? When you're hosting, are you going to be the bartender as well? Are we going to have beers and wine, or are we going to actually make some mixed drinks? And if we're going to make mixed drinks, who's going to make them? What kind of alcohol do we need? How drunk are we going to actually let people get, or just keep it to beer and wine so people can drive home and be able to drive home okay? That's the hosting part. Then we get to actually eating. Now, for this part, it's what are we eating on? Are we getting paper plates, or are we going to let them use the plates in the house and just run the dishwasher? What about for cups? Are we going to get red Solo cups or nicer cups, or can they use the glassware? If we're making real drinks, do we let them use the nice glass? If someone brings a whiskey, can they use a whiskey glass that you have? For the hors d'oeuvres and for the snacks, do we need to buy little plates? Do we need to buy plastic utensils? Are we going to use all the paper towels that we have, or are we going to buy napkins, right? For the eating part, you got to think, how are you actually going to eat this meal? Where are you going to eat this meal? Do you have enough chairs? Do you need to bring out the 6-foot table to have it out, or just TV trays? Where are people going to eat? And then the finish. The finish is everyone's done eating. The game is on. Does that mean you're done? No, because everyone's still there. Everyone's still at the house. You're still hosting. Are you going to provide coffee? Are you going to provide dessert? Are they going to be like cookies, brownies? While people are watching the game, if they get hungry, do they just heat up the food that's already there, or do you provide something? What does the finish look like when you're done with it? That entire thought process doesn't necessarily happen all at once. But the first takeaway is that entire thought process counts towards making a goal. For any time you think about making a goal, remember C.H.E.F. and think about the entire walkthrough we just did in order to host a primetime football game. You may not do it all in one time, but if you touch all those, you're going to touch all those areas at some point. That's synonymous to making your goals. If you sit down and you say, I want to lose weight, and that's it. Well, you didn't even meet the definition of goal, because you need effort and time. So your effort is losing weight, and then time, you didn't bound it to anything, right? Let's take it one step further. I want to lose 20 pounds in 3 months. Okay, so now we've covered the time boundness. The effort is going to be the amount of weight that you lose, but effort requires you to actually do something. So you identified the future state of what you're going to do. How do you actually get there? What do you actually do to lose those pounds so that they accumulate and they equal the full amount by the time the 3 months is over. That's your effort. The thought process to get to all that, I'm going to get a Planet Fitness or LA Fitness membership. I'm going to go before work so that my workout's done for the day and I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to eat healthy. All that extra stuff is part of making your goal. You don't necessarily cover all of it at the time that you make it, but I do want you to consciously identify and highlight that you are putting in the thought. Take the time, put in the thought. When you sit down and you initially draft these goals that you have, especially in corporate America, you may or may not get flow down from your leadership saying, here's the goals of the organization. If you do, it may be a great starting point to frame your mind. If not, now you're starting from scratch. You're not going to be able to say in January or February of a calendar year everything that you want to get done for that year. It's just too early. You don't know what you don't know. You might change roles. You might change companies. You might already be in the mindset of something that you want to get done that's totally unrelated to your group, right? You want to make sure when you sit down, though, just put some thought into it and then continue to put thought into it. Once you actually get into pursuing that goal, putting the effort for that goal, you'll be able to really sharpen the details of that goal. It's funny, working for corporate America, every single year, we get the goals of the entire enterprise. And it's always the finance stuff. We want to hit this for sales, this for orders, for cash. We want this type of profit. And I'm just like at the very bottom of the pyramid. To make a goal that contributes to that is going to be very hard to do. Understanding how the work I do helps the bottom line when I physically don't touch the product is kind of hard, right? That's going to take a little amount of time to figure out how can I truly contribute. Those in smaller companies are a little bit luckier. They can truly understand the impact that they have and the role that they're in contributes to that bottom line. I visited companies that are anywhere from 1 person to 12 people making a product. When you have companies that small, it's easier to identify and make the goals that say, hey, if I do X, Y, and Z, this will help us reach our profit. If you're in those types of companies that are smaller, I applaud you. At the same time, the amount of thought that you're going to have to put in to make the goal is still there. It may be easier for you to draft the goals, but the effort that you're going to have to put in takes a lot of thought. And that's going to bring us to our second takeaway. Draft goals are acceptable. One of the corporate buzzwords around goals is using SMART goals. SMART, as an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. I'm not going to lie, when training someone on goals, using that SMART methodology to help them draft theirs is good. I'm not going to criticize that. There's nothing bad about it at all. It's actually a good way to have people frame their mind in order to draft their goals. The takeaway that I want to give is that draft goals are acceptable, meaning at the time you sit down to identify the goals that you have, they don't need to be finalized at that point in time. Going back to wearing the chef hat, when you sent out the text to everyone that you're going to be hosting for the primetime football game, you didn't have to know everything that was going to be done to host. You may have known just the food items that you intend to cook in order to make sure that no one has allergies to it. But did you know that you were going to make dessert? Did you know that you were going to have coffee? Did you know that you needed tables and chairs? You may have not known all those things, and that's okay. That's what puts your goal in draft. You send out the text message to say, guys, come over for 6:00, my house, to watch the game. We're going to have hot dogs, burgers, ribs, and some sides. Bam. It's out there. The goal is out. You are now the chef. Now, because you time bound that to the football game, and more specifically 6:00, because that's when everyone's showing up, you now have until 6 p.m. of that day to finalize this goal. That's the approach that I'm also recommending you take in corporate America with your goals as well. When you have to, if you're in an organization that requires you to draft your goals every year, and you're drafting them in the first business quarter, January, February, March, you don't need to finalize them for the year. They're draft. They're the ideas for the goals that you have. As more time passes, you gain more information, then you can sort of tweak it. This is when you're cooking and you're taste testing what you're cooking, right? You may season your food. I'm not a chef. I'm not a culinary expert. I'm not expecting you to be either. So we all do this. We're cooking our food and we taste it. And we're like, this could use a little bit of that. This can use a little bit of that. It's a draft food until you put it on a plate to eat it, right? When you're cooking and you do that initial taste test to see if you need to add anything, that whole cooking's in draft. Trying to figure out, I know what it wants to be when it's done, but I want to see where I'm at now. And then I tweak it. And it's like, okay, need a little salt and pepper. Add a little salt and pepper, tweak it again. Or maybe it's good after the salt and pepper. But basically, you don't finalize it until it's like almost at the finish line. I know some people are going to say, well, in a production environment, if you have a commitment for the number of products that you have to sell within a year, that can't be in draft. I say, why not? Why not? If you are marking it as a goal and you're not an executive where your bonus compensation is contingent on that, why not? It happens all the time. Our target is 100 units. Sure, it could be firm for the corporation, but for you, that's a draft. Until you actually know all the pieces that will help you reach that goal of 100 units and give you the confidence that you're going to hit 100, you're going to doubt that. You can't be confident in your goals. It's not human nature to have high confidence until you know enough that you yourself can believe that it's going to happen. They tell you 100 units by the end of the year, but you know your supply chain isn't as strong and there's been quality problems. You're not going to believe that. You know that the best you can probably do sitting right now is 90. So 100 in your mind is a draft target, right? I know firmly I can do 90, 100 is a draft target. Now you're going to put in the effort to turn that 90 into 100. And that's where the thought counts, right? Where you are really putting in the time and effort to make that draft goal happen. But I need you to know it's okay to draft a goal. You don't need to finalize it. Going back to the weight. I want to lose weight in 3 months. If it doesn't come out perfectly, that's fine. Remember, you said 3 months. Month 1, you don't lose a third of the pounds that you were hoping for to lose in total. That doesn't mean your goal is dead. It doesn't mean it's over. That means you make the adjustment. It was a draft. So now, in order to reach my goal, I have 2 months left. I'm still keeping the same time bounding. 2 months left. Now I need to adjust in order to make sure I reach my goal. I need to lose more weight in the last 2 months to make sure that I meet the goal. That's the whole idea of draft goals are acceptable. You make the idea, you write it down, you want to do it. As time goes by, you will either identify the changes or reinforce the confidence that you need to make sure that the goal happens. Let's do one more example. Saving money. You want to save $1,000 a month for the calendar year. That'll be $12,000 at the end of the year. After January and February, you're at $3,500. Does that mean that now you can go down on the future months? Maybe. But does that give you the confidence to say, since I'm ahead of plan, I feel a lot more confident about my goal? Yes. Does it finalize your goal? No, because you didn't hit the 12,000. You didn't hit the 12,000 yet. So your goal's not finalized. You just know that you're on track, or actually in this case, ahead of track. Let's do the flip side. You're at 500 after 2 months. Is 12,000 dead? No. Still a draft. You just got to make the adjustments to say, okay, I have 10 months left. How do I make the changes to what was already specified in the initial goal or in the initial draft of the goal to ensure that I hit it at the end of the year? And that's going to take us down to our third takeaway. It is much easier to make goals than it is to align them. Making goals is 101, 102, or 101, 201 level stuff. Anyone can make a goal. If you want to use the SMART methodology to write your goal, absolutely recommend. That's a good way to frame your mind to make your goal. But it's really easy to make goals. It is very difficult to align them. What does that mean? I'll give you an example, a personal example first, and then we'll do a corporate example. Let's say I want to get up in the morning at a certain time and do a workout, right? Back to the losing weight goal. I'm not going to say losing weight is the goal. I just want to get up in the morning, have a workout before I start the day. If I don't need to align that goal, I'm good. I just get up in the morning and I go work out. Now, let's take it one step further and say, now we need to align that goal. I have a spouse, I have children, I have pets. Now I have to make the alignment with my household to make that happen. If I'm getting up earlier, can I take the pets out that early and they still be okay, or do I need to take them out when I get back? I need the alignment with the spouse to say, hey, I'm going to be getting up, getting out the bed, hope you still fall asleep, but also while I work out, you're going to be solo dolo. Then with the children as well, right? What happens if one of the children wake up and you're gone? What happens if your workout's too long and you're past the time to get back that they need to get up? When you're trying to align, so many more variables kick in that it becomes a huge discussion, and it involves the level of thought required to get the goal done. Let's take this back into the kitchen and corporate and give an example of this. This is the goals of the enterprise. They make the stated goals. We want $1 billion in sales, and we want $100 million in profit. Cool. Now, all the areas of the business have to align to reach those goals. Let's say we're at a large corporation. There are 7 different business product lines, P&Ls, that support the enterprise. Well, you can't just take one and say, what are you doing and how does it support it? You have to look at all of them in totality. If one's going to be strong in sales and one's not, can we have resources to support the one that's not to bring them up? What do they look like all together? Aligning all 7 of those areas to ensure that they meet the goals is why corporate is so top heavy. A lot of these large corporate functions have so many executives and are so top heavy with leadership. That's one of the reasons why. Aligning your goals takes a lot of people and a lot of effort. In reality, You may think it shouldn't. If we're a lean organization and we're producing the way we're supposed to, shouldn't it be easy? And the answer to that is absolutely. Is anything that we do easy here? No, absolutely not. We are where we are. We have to take it at face value and at what we're given. We can only play the cards that we're given. We're not going to cheat. We're not going to pull a card from under the table. We're going to take what we're given and work with it. So remember, making your goals is a lot easier than aligning them. When you're in corporate, all these goals that we were talking about, you're probably going to have to align it with another group. Very rarely will you be able to identify a goal that's 100% on you. You don't need anyone else. I'm thinking out loud, training, for example. You say you want to take 2 training classes. You might need approval for that budget. You might need manager approval to take the class. Now you have to align that with your manager, right? If you want to work on 6 different projects, well, you have to align that with the project managers. That's going to be hard because you don't know, or it could possibly be hard because you don't know what the project manager's goals are. And you have to align your goals to their goals. The alignment gets difficult and it puts us in that influencing category where we're trying to push our will and our desires onto someone else and make them agree. And it's not a forceful thing, right? It's not a you must sort of thing. It's I'm seeking, how do we make this happen? It's a how. As a side note, speaking of chefs, I do want to give a shout out to the 2 chefs that I particularly like in real life, like actual real chefs. One is Josh Weissman and the other is Olivia Tiedemann. Those 2 people I watch on YouTube all the time. I try to follow what they do. Josh has a book out that I bought. I tried a lot of stuff from that book. Olivia is going to be coming out with a book. If you follow a chef, let me know on Instagram. I'm very curious. I'm not a culinary expert, but I'm always looking to learn. One of my goals is to become a better cook, not just for myself, but for my family. I would like to be able to increase the variety of foods that I provide for them, but make sure they taste good. If you follow a chef, let me know. I would love to read their cookbook, and if they have a YouTube page, see what they make and maybe follow some of the stuff that they do. Okay, side note over, and we can start the wrap up of this. Remember, when it comes to your goals, you can do everything that we talked about. This is 101, 201 level stuff, not 301, 401. You can 100% put the thought in because that's your effort. Drafting goals should make the thought process even easier because now you're not under the pressure of having to finalize them for the year. And it's easier to make them than it is to align them. At the end of the day, though, if you disagreed with everything that you heard, the one point you cannot argue at all is the definition. It takes effort and time. You have to do those 2 things to meet your goals. And with that, we'll turn off this stove, take off the thinking apron, and let's just say the dishes will get done later. This topic wasn't a big mess, but if we learned something today, then we know there's a little cleaning up to do. I do want to talk this topic more, maybe trade stories about this soon, like this Thursday soon. I hope to see you there. Thanks for being in the corporate kitchen today. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.